The crystal glasses clinked at Le Bernardin as my father raised his toast, his eyes fixed adoringly on my sister Catherine. To my brilliant daughter who just made partner at Goldman Sachs. At least one child isn't a disappointment. I smoothed down my simple black dress, a custom Bottega Veneta piece that cost more than Catherine's entire designer wardrobe, and maintained my composure. If only they knew that while they celebrated her success, I had quietly built Phoenix Ventures into a billion-dollar investment empire. And Isabella, my father turned to me with familiar disappointment, still doing that little consulting work? Still consulting. Catherine smirked, adjusting her flashy new Cartier watch. You know, Izzy, my team is always hiring analysts. Even you could handle basic spreadsheets. If she only knew that while she bragged about her six-figure salary, I was closing deals worth more than Goldman's entire quarterly profit. The little consulting work, they mocked, was just a cover for my real operations. That's kind of you to offer, I replied softly just as my phone buzzed with another update. Tesla acquisition complete. $300 million profit secured. Seriously, Isabella, my mother chimed in, when are you going to do something meaningful with your life? Look at Catherine, designer clothes, luxury apartment, real career. I thought about my real estate portfolio, including the building where Catherine rented her luxury apartment, which I owned through a shell corporation. The meaningless life they pitted had made me one of the most successful private investors in the country. I manage, I said quietly. Manage? My father scoffed. You live in that tiny Soho loft, drive a basic car and do freelance work. Meanwhile, Catherine just bought a house in the Hamptons. The tiny loft was actually the smallest of my 12 properties. The basic car was a custom-engineered vehicle with security features that cost more than Catherine's Hamptons house. But they were too busy planning my intervention to notice the truth hiding in plain sight. My phone lit up again, another message from my team. Microsoft deal closed. $180 million transferred to your private account. At least try to dress professionally, my mother sighed, eyeing my simple dress. Catherine could take you shopping. I'm comfortable with my choices, I replied, thinking of the vault in my real office where I kept the evidence of my success. Bank statements showing billions in assets, properties across 3 continents, and investment returns that would make Catherine's partner bonus look like pocket change. Comfortable with mediocrity, my father muttered. Thank God Catherine understands the value of ambition. I checked my watch, a subtle Patek Philippe that cost more than Catherine's annual salary, and thought about the gift I'd planned for this evening. After years of enduring their condescension, tonight they would finally learn the truth about their disappointing daughter. After all, some birthday presents are worth waiting for. The waiter arrived with my father's birthday cake, an elaborate creation he barely glanced at, too busy listening to Catherine detail her latest major deal. $200 million in derivatives, she boasted. The biggest trade of my career. I bit back a smile, thinking of the billion-dollar deal I'd closed that morning while they thought I was probably sleeping late again. Speaking of career achievements, my father turned to me with mock interest. Any exciting consulting projects, Isabella? Actually, I said, reaching for my phone, I do have something to share. Consider it your birthday gift. Please don't tell me you're still working on that startup idea. Catherine rolled her eyes. Some people just aren't meant for big business. I pulled up my main account balance and placed the phone on the table. You're right, Catherine. Some people aren't meant for small achievements. The silence that followed was absolute as they stared at the number, $47 million, and that was just my checking account. This must be a mistake, my father stammered. No mistake, I replied calmly, switching to my investment portfolio screen. Phoenix Ventures currently manages assets worth $4.2 billion. That startup you mocked? It's now one of the most successful private investment firms in the country. Catherine grabbed my phone, her perfectly manicured hands shaking. This is impossible. You're a consultant. Actually, I pressed a button on my phone and the restaurant's private screens lit up with news headlines about Phoenix Ventures' latest acquisitions. Consulting was just a cover. While you were bragging about million-dollar deals, I was closing billion-dollar ones. My mother's wine glass clattered against her plate. But, your apartment, your lifestyle, my tiny loft, one of 12 properties I own. That basic car? Custom-made with security features because billionaires need protection. I smiled, watching their world shift. By the way, Catherine, your luxury apartment building? I bought it last year. You've been paying rent to your disappointing sister. Why didn't you tell us? My father whispered. Tell you what? I raised an eyebrow. That while you were celebrating Catherine's predictable success, I was building an empire. That every time you mocked my choices, I was adding another zero to my net worth. I turned to Catherine, whose face had lost its usual smug expression. That derivatives deal you're so proud of? I declined to be the counterparty because the terms weren't aggressive enough. Phoenix Ventures doesn't waste time on small trades. The waiter approached with the birthday dessert menu, but no one was thinking about celebration anymore. They were too busy processing the revelation that their family failure was actually their wealthiest member. After all, some birthday surprises are worth more than others. The aftermath of my revelation sent shockwaves through both Wall Street and our family. Headlines blazed, hidden billionaire revealed, consulting cover for investment empire, and Phoenix Ventures founder exposes $4.2 billion secret worth. My phone exploded with messages from family members who suddenly discovered their deep respect for consulting. Catherine, we should discuss some co-investment opportunities. Mom, darling, why didn't you tell us about your real business? Dad, princess, let's talk about family wealth management. I archived them all, focusing instead on my next acquisition, ironically the hedge fund where Catherine had just made partner. They didn't know it yet, but Phoenix Ventures had been quietly buying shares for months. 1 month later, I sat in my true office, the entire top floor of a building I owned in Manhattan, reviewing the changes in my family's attitude. Catherine had been passed over for 3 promotions after her clients learned she wasn't connected to Phoenix Ventures. Our parents had stopped hosting their bragging dinners about their successful daughter. Your sister's here to see you, my assistant announced. She's been waiting in reception for 2 hours. I watched on the security feed as Catherine sat nervously, her designer outfit looking slightly less confident now. The basic lifestyle she'd mocked had revealed itself to be worth more than her entire career trajectory. Tell her I'm in a meeting with Goldman's CEO, I replied, signing documents for my latest acquisition, which would soon make me her boss's boss. When I finally agreed to another family dinner 3 months later, it was in my private dining room, surrounded by evidence of the wealth they'd never noticed, rare art pieces, priceless artifacts, and views of the city buildings I owned. This is extraordinary, my mother managed, staring at a Monet on the wall. We never knew. Of course you didn't, I replied. You were too busy counting Catherine's bonuses to notice I was counting billions. Catherine shifted uncomfortably in her chair. About that, I never understood what you were building. Clearly, I agreed, pressing a button that revealed screens showing Phoenix Ventures' current holdings. That basic lifestyle you mocked? It was a cover for this. Every time you bragged about $1 million deal, I closed $1 billion one. Why keep it secret? My father asked quietly. Would you have believed me? I laughed softly. You were too invested in Catherine's conventional success to recognize real achievement. Besides, I smiled, watching you underestimate me made it easier to buy companies right out from under you. Over the following months, my family watched as Phoenix Ventures emerged from the shadows. Catherine's firm discovered their new majority shareholder was her failing sister. Our parents' social circle buzzed with stories about the daughter they'd never bothered to understand. Your father's requesting a meeting, my assistant reported one morning. He says it's about reconciliation. I glanced at the birthday photo still on my desk, the last picture taken before I revealed my worth. They were all smiling condescendingly at me, certain of my mediocrity. Tell him my net worth is still the same, I replied, but my time is now too valuable for those who only recognized my value after seeing my bank balance. The consulting work they'd dismissed had built an empire. The simple lifestyle they'd mocked had concealed billions. The daughter they'd labeled a disappointment had become a Wall Street legend. As for me, I had companies to acquire and wealth to build. After all, success doesn't need constant validation. Sometimes it just needs the perfect moment to show its true worth. Because sometimes the best birthday gift isn't wrapped in paper. It's wrapped in the sweet revelation that the child they called a failure was actually a financial titan all along. And that's a present worth more than any cake could ever be. Sometimes I visit Goldman Sachs, now partly owned by Phoenix Ventures, and watch Catherine in her increasingly modest office. Her partner status means less each day as more clients realize the real power lies with her consulting sister. The designer clothes she used to mock my simple outfits in have been replaced by more practical wear. Amazing how priorities shift when your position depends on your formerly failing sister's decisions. The family dynamic has shifted permanently. Holiday dinners, when they happen, take place in my private venues. Dad no longer gives condescending toasts about success. It's hard to brag when your disappointing daughter could buy and sell your entire social circle. Mom stopped suggesting career counseling when she realized my little consulting work had funded a charitable foundation bigger than their entire net worth. I kept the birthday cake receipt from that revelation dinner, framed it next to my first billion-dollar deal document. Sometimes success isn't about immediate gratification. It's about waiting for the perfect moment to serve the sweetest revenge. The basic car I drove now sits in a museum I built, alongside other artifacts of my hidden empire years. The plaque reads, "Appearance of failure is sometimes the best cover for building an empire." Because sometimes the greatest achievement isn't making billions. It's watching those who doubted you realize they never really knew you at all.